It's Corso and Catone. Brought to you by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Now for the real deal New England feel. Corso and Catone.
Welcome into Corso and Catone, the real deal New England feel. I'm Corso. Catone is here. Joe is with us in the booth. You're watching us on YouTube, listening on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcast. Anyway, podcast, you can catch us. Guys, I can't stop laughing right now. I got to.
Yeah, I saw that. The same. I know what you're laughing at because I was too.
Before the show, before we begin recording, Joe puts up the thumbnail. So you need to go on YouTube, everybody, and you need to watch the show from there because there's a thumbnail or a picture you're going to see. And the picture for this show, Pat's Wolf, right? Pat Sending the Wolf is the title of the show this week. Of course, Eliot Wolf. But the thumbnail, the picture he's got up there.
You have to see it.
You gotta go.
Hey, let me put it up. I'll put it up for everybody.
It's Samuel Jackson.
Oh, that's great.
From Reservoir Dogs?
No,
Oh,
Pulp
yeah.
Fiction.
It's a Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction, baby.
Reservoir Dogs was better. Anyway.
Oh, okay. Here we go, Joe.
So, anyway, you podcast, you can catch us and give us a call and heated hotline 855-313-PATS, PATS. Anything's on the table 24/7. Leave us a message. Joe's going to pick one. Let it be yours or our mailbag, corso.catone@gmail.com. Oh, Joe, we got a mailbag one tonight, don't we?
We do have a mailbag, yep.
Okay, and in addition to that, in Weekly Rewind tonight, we're going to talk Celtics, going to talk Providence College. They had a big game last night against Marquette. Let's see how that went. And, of course, Catone's comments. You never want to miss that. And going to bring in the Pats Nation, talk about Wolf. Wolf gives us hope, or Pat Sending the Wolf, right? So we'll talk about Eliot Wolf and the Patriots and hear from one of you in Heated Hotline. But, guys, before we do that, I got to, on a somber note, about 5 months ago, as we know, the former pitcher for the Red Sox and good community guy, Tim Wakefield, passed away, from cancer. And sadly, Wednesday, his wife, Stacy Wakefield, lost her battle also with pancreatic cancer. And I'd be remiss if we didn't bring that up. And our hearts are with that entire family, what they must be going through, and thoughts and prayers, of course. And
Yes.
For everyone out there, when you get a chance, just give a thought, give a prayer to the Wakefield family and the friends and Mark. That's horrific, man.
Yeah, it's awful. Awful. Yep.
And these are the things that go past sports, that we always have to think about. So they'll be in our thoughts and our prayers. So listen, Mark, there were some things, Weekly Rewind today. We got a lot to talk about. We got Celtics, we got PC. We're going to do it in Weekly Rewind. Joe, let's have it. Going back through the week, about a Weekly Rewind. So talking Celtics, Mark, and they're on top of the world right now.
Oh, they absolutely.
They're head and shoulders the best team in basketball. And listen, we don't normally talk nice. We're not usually positive about a lot of things on the show, but right now, I'm feeling real good about this team. Especially the other night. And I think it was Tuesday night.
The game against Philadelphia you're talk about, right?
Game against Philly. And I know they didn't have him beat. It's not really about Philly. It's more about Boston. And it seems we've been bitching and complaining about this team, talking about what happens if they're not hitting their threes. Do they have another way to win? Well, and I don't have the numbers, so I don't know how many they put up, but they didn't put many.
I believe they only put up 29 3-pointers,
which is low.
Really, it's low for them. So I don't even think it was that they weren't hitting. They were going out playing defense on the shooter, and the Celtics adjusted and took advantage of it.
They played a lot of paint. They were in the paint. What was nice about it was they looked for matchups, which I love when they do that, when they're patient with matchups. But Philly gave them the lane. Philly was blitzing their 3-point. They were blitzing out at the 3-point line. Clear that was going to be their game plan. And Boston took advantage of that, and they drove and all of them did it. Even Porzingis, they drove the lane all night long, especially Tatum. You
They
know,
did.
Tatum
No,
was big in the second half. Brown showed up in the first half. It was nice to see that they could do it. That if they want to play in the paint, if they want to drive, if they want to kick, if they want space, they can do it and they can hit. Now, if they're doing that, Mark, I mean, I listen. If
Yeah,
they're
but
playing that
listen,
way, I don't know
listen,
who can beat them.
yes, I agree, but I am going to temper. I'm going to temper
There you go.
your
You're
excitement.
feeling good, and here he comes. You know, the
Yeah.
Grinch.
Listen, if you listen though to the post-game press conference,
Yeah.
and they asked him about that flip of style and the fact that Philly shot more 3-pointers than they did.
Yeah.
His response wasn't they were guarding, coming out and guarding, and we drove to the basket and we adjusted. That wasn't his answer. His answer was, but if you look at the total shots we got between, shots in the paint, 3-pointers, and foul shots, we had more shots than they did. And that goes back to that foolish analytics of who's putting up more shots, right? So he still reverted back, Chris, to the analytics of, who's taking more? We still took more shots than they did, even though so that's still their mindset, Chris. So I'm going to temper what you're saying just by, I still don't know if they get it. Do they get the fact that they did what they did because they changed how they did things? It had nothing to do with the number of shots you got between the paint, the 3-point line, and the foul line. That wasn't, you know what I mean? But that's how he responded to the question, which
that
I
may
don't
be his response. But listen, you can't look at the look.
I don't know.
I have the numbers now. I mean, field goals. They were 39 to 74. So the Celtics took 74 shots, 2-point shot, or total, and to 76ers took 94.
Yeah, but Chris, that's not including free throws. If you add in the free throws, they had more than 94.
Yeah, they had 37 free throw attempts.
Yes, and that's what he referenced in the press.
I get it, but that's a product of driving the lane. I mean, that's a product of bodying up and getting in the lane and playing in the post.
And listen to me.
That's a change of philosophy.
But listen to me. If he said that, bodying up and getting in the post, if he said that, I'd be ecstatic. He didn't say that. He mentioned the amount of shots.
Yeah.
Total.
To me, because they took 22 3-pointers. They were 5 of 22, which is a bad percentage, but they, So listen, I know what he's saying. Yeah. But to me, you know what it looks like to me right now? This to me looks like a team that's okay. We need to perfect certain things. We're going to use these games now and maybe I'm just giving them too much credit. And I may be giving them too much credit right now. But that's what it certainly looked like there. Now let's see what happens moving forward. Like, hey, look, we're gonna shy away from these points, or we're gonna take what they're gonna give us, and we're gonna not experiment, but we're gonna see how we play doing this. We're gonna have a game plan for this. So when they get in the playoffs, I mean, it would be smart if they're doing this, Mark, because when they get in the playoffs, now you can go to these things.
Well, Chris,
you worked on them.
If they stay healthy, okay, I listen, we both agree we really don't want to see Miami. However, we should be able to beat Miami too. But if we're healthy and we stay healthy, Chris, I think most people do agree that we're probably going to represent the East. Now, to your point, Chris, can we win against the Western Conference in a 7-game series playing the way we've always played? I don't know, Chris, because the Clippers in LA blew them out. Denver, you saw what happened in that Denver game.
Yeah.
So I think you're right, Chris. I think even playing the way they had played that other style, I still think they're talented enough to get out of the East. But to win the championship, they're going to have to figure out other ways to win. When things don't go their way from outside or they're having an off night or whatever it may be, can they figure out a way to score points and win a game?
It's a players' league, Mark, and if the players are recognizing this, because I don't care what the coach puts out there. If Tatum and Brown, if they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. And so it seems to me that the players are recognizing it. I hope guys like Cassell on the bench. I think they're going to come together with this. I think Mazzulla is the kind of guy that he's not going to give us anything. He's going to give us what we want to cry about, so that he can in the back. I mean, I hope I'm giving him a lot of credit, and let's hope that's correct. Because Mark, if they're playing like that, and you throw in two games in a series where they're lights out, which they'll have, they're going to have 2 games in a series where they're lights out and 3-point land.
They will. They definitely will have that. Definitely.
So
Chris,
to me, they're the best team if nothing catastrophic happens.
Yeah, if something catastrophic
Way to put that
doesn't
out
happen,
there, Joe Buck.
I didn't say what, another country heard. I didn't say what the catastrophe would be. I just said catastrophic. It could be anything.
Buck, what is
I
wrong
don't
with
want the
him?
earthquake to happen in Boston or anything. It could be that, Joe.
No,
so go ahead, Mark.
But so here's the other thing, Chris. So I believe that, and we've talked about this numerous times, that you're going as the playoffs start and they get themselves into some of these series, Chris, you're going to see Holiday and White, I believe, become more and more of a presence, Chris, where you won't have, where I think Brown and Tatum, those guys will be able to score, feed, dish. I think they'll be the guards, Chris, on this team, and the way they work together and the way what they can give you, they didn't have when they had Marcus Smart back there, Chris. That's going to be the difference too, I think, in the playoffs. Those guys aren't Marcus Smart, and I know he was a great defender at times, but those guys aren't Marcus Smart in the backcourt.
Well, let's see what happens with what do they got? 22, 24 games, something like that left.
Yeah.
Let's see how they go down the stretch and some of the things they pull out. And Mark, the other thing, Mr. PC Fryer here, want to talk PC a little bit, basketball, men's basketball. Dropped the game to Marquette last night, and it's not a game they should have won or anything. I mean, the Marquette's a good basketball team, and what you saw, Marquette came to play. I mean, there was not a lot they did wrong in that game. So I'm not sure. Like you said before the show started, I'm not sure if anybody could have beaten them last night.
No, I don't think there was a team.
So let's talk about the tournament. What do they got to do?
Marquette's number 5 in the country, Chris. Just real quickly. I don't know. The way they played last night and the way they shot, I don't know of many teams in the country that could have beat them last night. Let aside PC, right? So as far as the NCAA tournament, it's March, obviously, right? So now we're in the home stretch of the Big East, and we're getting ready for Big East tournament and March Madness. PC right now sits with 9 wins in the conference. They're 9-8. They got a big game Saturday, as this show will be airing, against Villanova at Providence. They go to Georgetown, and they're at home against Connecticut. They're going to win 2 games. You're going to hold home court against Villanova, which you should be capable of doing, and you can't let Ed Cooley beat you in Georgetown. Georgetown's got 2 wins all year in the conference against DePaul, the worst team in the conference. You have to make sure you take care of business in these next 2 games, Chris. Even if you lose to Connecticut, which you probably will, the number 1 team in the country, you have 11 wins. No team in the history of the Big East, Chris, has won 11 regular season games and been kept out of the NCAA tournament. They're not going to keep them out. They get to 11, they're in. They might be a 10
Especially this year.
Especially this year. You got 3 of the top 12 teams in the country in the conference, and we've beaten 2 of those 3 teams already. We don't know what's going to happen with Connecticut the last game of the season. But if you win 11 games, Chris, you're in. You might be a 10 or 11 seed, but you're in. So the next 2 games, Chris, will determine whether they're in the tournament or not. Granted, they could still go on the run in the Big East tournament and get in. But the next 2 games, Chris, you win them, and I believe you're in. I really do.
Let's pay attention, and I'm worried about that. I'm worried about that Georgetown game because
I am too.
Cooley's going to have them. You don't think he looks at the standings? Hey, we can put the screws to Providence. Let's do it at home.
This is his chance to knock him down. Yeah, absolutely. Especially after the treatment he got when he came up here for that game.
So, he did.
Right?
So English better have him ready for that game. And let's not look past Villanova because they looked like crap against them the last time they played.
You were disgusted with that performance.
I was disgusted. 6 points in 10 minutes. Oh my God. Anyway, so let's go PC. Let's go Friars. Here we go. So Weekly Rewind was presented by Corso Law Group, Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm, CORSOLawGroup.com. Allow us to be your voice. Hey, when we come back, buckle up. Catone's Comments is next.
No one ever thinks they will be in need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. Corso Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Call or go online to CORSOLawGroup.com and talk with these expert attorneys who I know will help.
Time for Catone's Comments!
So, listen, I have to address this topic because it's relevant right now, and it's been out there, and no one is really calling him out for this. But this show has called him out consistently. And I'm going to have to give, and I hate to do this, Joe, I'm going to have to give Chris some credit. I'm going to have to give him credit.
Don't you have a stadium chair for that, Joe?
Easy.
Yeah, I know. I'm going a little overboard here.
You should
However,
be cheering. The stadium, the fans are rocking now hearing that.
I'm going to have to give him credit for calling out Mr. Kraft. And I'll call him Mr. Kraft.
There you go. That's all you get.
All right. He deserves respect. However, I got a few things to call out that really, really have me fired up. So we talked about the dynasty a little bit last week, the first two episodes, and I think we're going to touch on that again later in the show. However, when Spygate happens in that show, Kraft makes a statement. Well, I talked to Bill and I said to him, on a scale of 1 to 100, how important would that have been? And Bill said a 1. And I said, well, then you got to be a schmuck. What? Does anybody believe he actually said that to Bill Belichick? Honestly, does anybody believe he said that to Belichick? I don't believe it. That's a bunch of crap. If you think he said that to Belichick, that didn't happen. Okay, that absolutely didn't happen. Secondly, this week the Players Association again releases their satisfaction index for teams. And the Patriots, once again, are at the bottom of the league. They actually regressed from last year. And what does that take into account? It takes into account the coach, right? It takes into the head coach. It takes into account facilities. It takes into account how families are treated. It takes into account accommodations when you're on the road. It takes into account meals, food, weight room. It takes into account a bunch of different things. But all of it reflects on Mr. Kraft, who is running a supposedly the model organization for the NFL. Oh, we're the model. Everybody wanted to be the Patriot way. You're ranked almost last in the league in player satisfaction. And why is that? I'm going to give Chris credit for this. It comes down to money, because you don't want to spend the money to raise that index. Instead, you're worrying about light towers and video boards. Why? Because that makes you look good. What? That's not doing anything for the product on the field. It's not doing anything for the players. It's not doing anything for their families. Okay. Then this week, the last couple of days, Gerard Mayo, who when he was hired, said, we got cash to burn in free agency and we're going to spend it. Well, now he walks that comment back and he says, well, we had money and I was excited, but that's not necessarily what I meant, because you can't spend all the money in 1 year, because you gotta make sure you're all set for the future over the next 2, 3, 4 years. Well, Jesus, where have we heard that before? Oh, we got to make sure that we're an organization that can sustain success. And these teams that waste all their cap money in 1 year, where are they? They end up at the bottom of the league and they got to rebuild. Guess what, Mr. Kraft? We're rebuilding. Whether you realize it or not, we're in the middle of a rebuild. That's what we are, in the middle of a rebuild. Okay? And by the way, other than the late 90s and early 2000s, when you had good drafts, that helped you at the beginning of that run. After 2007 with Randy Moss, when did you ever spend money? You did what you did because you had number 12 behind center and you had Belichick as your coach. You didn't win because you spent money. You didn't win because, we had the best. That's why you won. Let's face it. Let's call it out the way it is right now. You want to talk the dynasty? Yeah, okay, let's talk the dynasty. That's what it was. It certainly wasn't because you were spending money. You've been at the bottom of the league for years, and now you got this poor brand new coach walking back his comment. Because you know you're not going to go spend all that money in free agency. So now you're going to walk the comment back. And then the last piece of this is Eliot Wolf. Eliot Wolf talks about what we need to get skilled positions we need to weaponize our offense and blah, 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 blah. But then at the end of the day, he also makes reference to Green Bay and what he learned in Green Bay about winning. Well, guess what? Green Bay didn't spend money on free agents. Green Bay drafted well, developed players, got the quarterback. They got the quarterback. I get that. They always had the quarterback. So you got to get the quarterback. But then once you get the quarterback, the teams that win spend around a rookie quarterback or a first, second, third-year quarterback because you're paying them peanuts. But guess what? We had Mac Jones, and we didn't do that. So what makes you think we're gonna get Jaden Daniels, this guy, that guy? Does anyone think that Bob Kraft is then gonna spend around that guy to bring in the weapons to win? We're gonna weaponize ourselves with who? With who? So I'm disgusted with what I'm hearing and seeing, and that player survey comes out, and I heard what Mayo's saying. Mr. Kraft, listen, Mr. I have all the respect in the world for you. Listen, you kept New England here. Chris and I will always be indebted to you for keeping our team here, because that would have crushed us. Because first and foremost, yeah, we're fans. However, you're not doing what you claim you're doing, and you can't continue to blame a coach that's not here. That narrative has to end now. And guess what? You're going to get called out for it now. It ain't going to be Bill. Bill's not here. And Chris said this when Bill left. You can't hide behind Bill anymore. So guess what? You better spend money in free agency because you can't hide behind Bill.
This is great Catone's comments. You want to laugh? This is my outline for Pat's Nation. Okay. Coming up in 2 segments. Look at what it says. You can't see this on the radio, but it says schmuck. Really? I had that circled too, Mark. That comment from Dynasty. And just let me quickly.
And we can talk about that during Pat's Nation.
Well, I mean, no, we'll do it now because this is good. I never know what he's going to come up with. So, Mark, talking about that show, I'm disgusted watching this Dynasty. And I thought all the digs and shots at Bill would come later in the show. It's right off the bat. I mean, all this thing is Kraft trying to make himself look good, is making Brady look good. That's it. I mean, Belichick's escaping, and he was. Okay, fine. He made all the decisions he made bad, but he made the good ones too. He made the good decisions too. Even that stuff with Bledsoe still painted Bill as the villain guy.
He made the right decision, but he made the right decision.
Yeah, instead of saying, look, the foresight this guy had to put this guy in the game. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it made me sick. Well, it also made me sick watching about 2007. I couldn't sleep all night. It's the first time I ever saw anything to do with 07.
Okay, good.
Since it happened.
And you know why that happened. And you know why that happened.
No, we're not talking about that.
Okay.
So, Muck, really? Yeah, there's no way. There's no way. Maybe in his head he said it. Maybe in his head he called him a schmuck. But there's no way. Mark,
but I don't even care about that, Chris. I'm more take issue with what Mayo said.
Yeah, listen.
What Wolf kind of said about the Green Bay and this player survey, Chris. Are you kidding me?
Well, the biggest thing to me in that player survey is Mr. Kraft's grade. Okay, D+, 27th in the league as an owner.
Yeah,
it's known. It's out there, and it's known that you don't want to spend money. And that's
So
because,
how are you
know why?
attracting free agents, Chris?
Yeah,
at that
the
point?
Mark, the players and the agents, you could look at Bill Belichick, and they did, and all you want. But every agent and player knows there's an owner above him. There's somebody else there that can say, wait a minute, I want to spend. I want to do it. Listen, the Krafts believe. I heard today, and we're recording Thursday, the Krafts believe in the cap. They truly believe in the cap. And no, they don't believe in you got the narrative wrong. They don't believe in the cap. They know full well that you can manipulate it, do anything you want. They use the cap. They use it as a way to not spend money. Say it again. They use it as a way to not spend money. That's what goes on in one Patriot place. You know, the Chiefs, right? They came out with one of the worst grades, if not the worst grade in this survey. The next day, I read an article that said Chiefs announced today they're going to spend $800 million in renovations. Boom. Because they saw the grade and they immediately reacted to it. So, oh, wait a minute. We got to we can't, we're getting our talent levels going down. We better make sure that it's attractive. I mean, Mahomes is attractive anyway, but the point is they took steps and now they're doing it. I don't hear it. It's crickets. It's crickets at one Patriots place over this thing.
Well, Chris,
Mark,
it goes
I'm
back
with
to
you.
that interview that Pete Carroll gave when Pete Carroll was talking about when he came from San Fran to be the head coach here. And, he was going through a menu for his first off-season conditioning program. And Kraft said to him, we don't give that out here.
Right.
We give them ham sandwiches. What? Listen, that stuck with Pete Carroll all these years. He was in amazement that you're giving professional athletes ham sandwiches. Really?
Oh, yeah. And there are a lot of stories like that. You're not going to hear this on here. You're going to hear it here because we're the real deal, New England Field. You're going to hear it on the other shows because somehow, some way, they're indebted to the Patriots somehow, where they gotta skate that line. No, we'll say it cheap. We're gonna say it cheap over and over again because that's what it is, Mark. It's cheap.
What it is.
And
it's cheap.
And when we get to Pat's Nation, I got a few thoughts about the Green Bay way and all of that because I'll push back on you a little bit with the Green Bay spend. What Green Bay does with their money is they re-sign their guys.
Well, they do because they do develop them and they draft well, Chris.
And that's where the money goes.
They do. That's where the money goes. But we're not doing. We don't do that. We haven't given a draft. We haven't given a draft pick that we drafted a second contract, not a 2-year extension. I'm talking a second contract since Deron Harmon. Oh my God, 13, Chris, that's absurd. Like that. That's absurd.
You're gonna tell me there were no good players to re-sign on this team?
That's absurd.
No, because you had Brady. But that's the one thing I'll push back on with Green Bay, with that, is that they do spend money on, but there's some other things that I take issue with when we get to Pat's Nation, we'll talk about. But yeah, Mark, you're right. I mean, the fact that Mayo backed that off, that's a great point.
How bad is that, Chris?
Because, if there was no other example of where the lack of spend, where the lack of resources coming from, here it is. So when you go back in time, this whole dynasty show, I'm going to watch it because we need to talk about it. But to me, it's already garbage. In my opinion, it's already garbage. We were there. We knew the tone. We understood the tone at the time. You want to dog Belichick from 2015 on? Fine. But you're not going to do it before that. You're going to do it prior to 2010.
Can't.
I mean, people were devoted to him with Spygate, everything. People were up in arms in this area.
I'm interested to see how Kraft discusses Deflategate.
Oh, well, you know what? That's Tommy. So that may be different.
That's what I'm saying. So that I'm interested in how they address Deflategate.
Yeah. Well, get off Belichick's ass now. That's enough.
Yeah, come on. The guy's gone. He left. He's gone.
Yeah. You got
over.
6 banners. Look behind me.
Yeah.
You see it behind me? Those of you on the radio, I got them behind me. You got 6 friggin' banners to a friggin' dumpster fire garbage pail of a franchise before he got there.
Yeah.
All kinds of dysfunction with parcels and every other stupid thing. So, you know what? Mark, good stuff. Excellent stuff, actually. Catone's comments was presented by Corso and Catone, the Real Deal New England Field, Saturdays, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. Sponsorships are available. Make sure you email. I never can say that word. Make sure you give us an email, corso.catone@gmail.com.
You realize he just said it. He says an excellent Catone's comment because I gave him props for being right. That's why, Joe.
You see?
Why it's excellent.
See what happens when you give?
See that? You
See
give
that,
and you
Joe?
will receive. You shall receive, right? So it's that way. When we come back, we're going to hear from one of you in the nation in Heated Hotline. No flipping. Stick around.
Mark, I'm serious. I think I lost my mind.
Certainly, it was an exciting show.
I want Murray.
What?
That's it.
What is wrong with
Get him on this damn
you?
show.
Lost your mind tonight.
That's all I have to say.
Lost your mind.
What are you writing now?
So I'm working over here. You're talking about nonsense. I'm working.
That's why we are the Real Deal New England Field. It's going to be real.
Back in with more Corso and Catone. All right, let's hear from one of you in the nation. Heated Hotline, Joe.
This is a bit of Heated Hotline from the Heated Hotline mailbag. Says, hi, guys. It's James in East Greenwich. So the goddamn Bruins have sucked us in again. They're at the top of the league, but really stink on defense. They lose in the end constantly or in overtime. I'm sick of this death act. Oh, I'm sorry. I read that wrong. I'm sick to death of this act. Just suck and be bad so I can watch the Celtics. I'm disgusted.
Who was that again in East Greenwich?
James from East Greenwich.
James, thank you for the email. Just suck,
James, I
Mark, so
like
you can
it.
watch the Celtics.
I got so excited and sucked into it. I read it wrong.
He's
James,
loyal.
He's right.
He's
Hey.
loyal to him, though. He's watching him. He doesn't want to watch him anymore, but he's still doing it. James,
He's forced to watch him.
Mark,
Listen.
this is something we weren't going to get to tonight, but I'm glad, Joe. I'm glad you picked this one. You saw the outline ahead of time,
See?
didn't you?
You see?
Saw the
Yeah.
rundown. James is dead on with this. It's getting really tough to watch. I know they're still on top. They're still at the top of the league, but
The Rangers
hanging.
are only what are the Rangers? A point behind
yeah,
them?
they're hanging in the point to 2
Yeah.
points up and down. Mark, it's getting tough to watch. It's getting really, really difficult to watch because you see the collapse. You know it's coming. You know, I mean, you can feel it. Hockey is one of those sports where you can feel it coming.
Yep.
You can feel a goal coming. You know, and the other night when they played Seattle?
Yep.
Okay, and
Who's not good, by the way.
Yeah, a friend of mine's nephew plays for Seattle. And I'm watching, and he actually did some damage to us, which I was upset about. But, you know, you could feel it in that game in the third period. You just knew that they're going to blow this lead. Then there's no way. And sure enough, they blow the lead late in the game. They go to overtime, and more than not, they lose. You know, they lose. We'll get to the shootouts in a second. But
I was just going to say.
you know, and I look at this defense. Look, I keep saying this. They don't have a problem scoring goals. I don't. That's not their issue. Their issues are, like James says, their defense in their own end and face-offs. They're getting killed.
Mm-hmm. Well, Chris, though, I will say this about scoring goals with any consistency. The last 6 or 7 games, Chris, other than Pasternak and Coyle, they have struggled to get goals. And if Pasternak and Coyle aren't scoring the goals, they're involved in the points. So they have, I think they're even struggling with that, Chris, outside of 2 or 3 guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you know, I more mean you got a lead. In most games, they're carrying a lead.
No, they are.
You know,
Chris,
and
if you remember correctly, we talked about this back Thanksgiving time. We said, but they can't hold. They got no toughness to hold a lead in the third period.
No, I mean, and it's in front of their net. And now the goalies. Look, the problem with this team is if the goalies aren't standing on their heads, which they haven't been lately. Now, listen, Swayman, I mean, you can't face that many shots. I mean, in the shots, what they're absorbing for shots against, It's
Yeah.
disgusting. You, as any goal, I don't care who, Patrick War, I don't care who you are. You can't face that many shots and still maintain the. So no, I mean, I'm going to back that off. The goalies are playing well, really, under the circumstances. But you watch what's going on in front of their net. I mean, that last Seattle goal the other night, there was a, I don't know who it was. Usually Carlo or one of the, but they're just they're there. They're just standing there. They're off to the side. I mean, they're not they're not getting anybody out of the way. They're not moving anybody. I mean, some of these shots, there's some soft goals being given up too. But it's like you're getting a barrage of shots all day, all game. Their transition defense sucks. Their center play isn't good, other than a couple of, one guy maybe. The center play hasn't been great in as much as far as the defensive portion. I mean, Bergeron was great coming back. He was great in defense, getting back on transition defense. It's one of those things that you can't really, the stats don't show it.
And the other thing, Chris, that Bergeron was good at, which helps.
Yeah,
he was lethal with the faceoffs.
they're getting their ass kicked there, Mark.
Getting their ass kicked with faceoffs, right?
Especially late in games.
Yeah.
I mean, especially late in games. And when you need to have it, they don't get it.
No.
And they got it. I mean, so what do you do? James, what do we do? What do you do? So to me, what do? You got to make a trade, Mark. They don't have capital. They don't have when's the final? When's the next
trade
week,
deadline?
the 8th.
Next week. So you're gonna have to, Chris. You're gonna have to get rid of the goalie. You can't keep the two
Ullmark.
goalies.
It's got to be Ullmark.
It's got to be Ullmark because that's the only capital you have, Chris. You can't give up any more picks. You're gonna have to give up Ullmark to bring somebody in. If this team is serious about trying to make a run, that's all you got. It's the only asset you have.
And when you do, I mean, it's got to be a defenseman. People say, well, we need a center, and with faceoffs, we're getting our face kicked in. I get that, but more so, you got to get somebody. You need some real help on defense. I mean, you need some toughness on defense. They fade. It's like when teams go up a notch in the third period when they're down, the level other teams will go to. The whistles get put away for the refs, and all these teams go to another level when they're trying really to press. They're pinching in. They're doing things to try to tie that game up. And when teams go to that next level, our defense stays level. They don't rise to it. They don't have another gear.
Chris, that's a good observation because guess when else that happens? In the playoffs.
That's right.
What you just described, that level of play is what happens in the playoffs. And that's why we fade because you're right. Our defense can't go to that next level. So James is right. Just get it over with. Fade now and get it over with. And
suck now.
And that's it. Right?
That's it.
I mean,
Come
on.
Suck
but
now.
I will say this. Can I say this, though, to play devil's advocate? I'm going to play devil's advocate. Now, as bad as they've played defensively, and as much as, James says that they suck, if they were able to win some of these shootouts, Chris, though, they would have a much better record. Just win half of them. They can't win.
I know where you're going with this,
Chris.
Yeah.
Right?
Why is he being put out there for shootouts, Mark?
I don't know.
Tell him who I'm talking about.
Pasternak.
I just like it's as if he's wearing a sign that says, "Please don't put me out here. I don't want to do this." I mean, right? Like that's the body language you see in him. He's lumbering. It's like he's in pre-skate. Coming out, back and forth, and it's the same move. It's the same, top shelf, shot. Every goalie's going to stop it. They've seen his act, but he's moving so slow through the zone. There's no electricity to it, and his percentage sucks. I mean, there's 3 other guys at least on this team that have a better shootout percentage than he does. And I'm not a big stats guy, but that's a real stat. That's like, that's like completion percentage.
Can I ask you this, though? You're a professional hockey player.
Yeah.
How can you not work in practice? How can you not develop something else in your repertoire And I'm not just talking about him. Yes, I'm talking about him, but I'm talking about several guys, Chris. How is it that you can't develop something else in your repertoire to try and score on those in overtime in those situations? Because what you said, Chris, they keep going back to the same thing, the same
Well, he
shot.
does for sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
he does for sure, but it's not just him.
Yeah, there's
When
some
you
other
look
guys
at these
failing there.
shootouts, Chris, it's not just him.
And I'm watching Marchand drop his head down right after that. Like, he's not dropping his head down because they lost. He's dropping his head down because he's watching Pasternak out there suck. Just flat out suck in the shoot. Just because you scored 2 goals in the game doesn't mean you have to be out there on the shootout. He doesn't want to mark. He's better than that. He's better than that. He doesn't want to do it. You can see it. He doesn't want to do it. And that guy, if he's nothing else, he's like that. When he doesn't want, you've seen him in playoffs fade away. You've seen him disappear. You've seen him do a lot. When he doesn't want to do something, he's like a little kid. He's like a little kid trying to, when they don't want to do something, they sit there and they'll, and Montgomery just keeps putting them out there.
Chris, a couple of weeks back, I think it was President's Day, that afternoon game they had at home, nine guys, nine shots, 9 rounds. You couldn't win that game, 9 rounds at home.
They won
at
it,
home.
but it took them 9.
9.
Listen, again, and that goes to Montgomery too. That goes to him. Like who are his lineup? And Mark, the other thing that's pissing me off too, last thing I'll say is with the coach is he got young guys on defense playing well throughout the game. Then all of a sudden, third period, they got the lead. Those guys are down. You're relying on 3 guys. I mean, you got, obviously McAvoy's going to be out there. I mean, he's your guy. He should be. But it's the same Carlo, Grzelcyk, McAvoy, Lindholm when he's there. Like Forbort sucks. I mean, and they're not playing well. And meanwhile, they got the kid who's been playing, I forget he's sitting on the bench. He's played well all game long. It happened against Seattle. He's playing all game long. All of a sudden, he just squeezes them there. That's it. You're at the end of the bench. You're not going out there again. What, because you don't trust them? You've blown leads in every damn game. You've lost, 8 of 9? Something like that. And most of those in overtime.
Say, Chris, why? You trust the guys you're putting out there? What have they showed you?
Oh, it's the same 3 guys. It's the same 3 guys. It's Mark, you could see it coming. I mean, you could see what's coming next. It's a first-round exit.
It's going to be a first-round exit. You're right.
And they'll sit in a regular season. They're regular, unless they do something with, and then they're not going to. They're not going to trade Allmark. They like the hugging. They like the hugging at the end of the game.
I'm going to tell you something. If they don't trade Allmark and bring in and they go into the playoffs and they're one and done, I think the coach is gone, Chris. How do you
gotta be? No, you have to be.
How do you bring him back?
You can't carry the best record in hockey throughout the whole season again. and lose again in the first round. No, you can't do it. Mark and I should do that, Joe, at the end of every show. We should hug like that, like the 2 goalies do.
Yeah.
Like that. That way we won't trade each
Chris,
other.
They have to make a move, though, with the trade deadline. Yeah. They have no other assets. I just don't know how you keep the 2 goalies. How do you keep Allmark? I don't know.
No, they're not good enough. They haven't gotten better. So let's see what happens in this next week. We'll certainly talk about it next week. And let us know what you think in Heated Hotline. Give us a call. Give us an email. But, James, we appreciate the email. Heated Hotline was presented by Corso Law Group, corsolawgroup.com. Here we come back on a Welcome in the Nation. Pat's Nation is next. Stick around.
No one ever thinks they will be in need of a criminal or traffic lawyer, but things happen. Corso Law Group is Arizona's leading criminal and traffic law firm. Their 20-plus years experience and attention to detail has helped thousands of people who found themselves in a situation in Arizona. Whether it's a traffic ticket or more serious issue, talk with these expert attorneys. CorsoLawGroup.com.
Back in with more Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. Got Patriots talk. We opened it up a little bit in Catone's comments. Let's elaborate. Pat's Nation, Joe. Gets me fired up every time. It does, doesn't it?
Well,
What are you doing on Sundays?
The only problem with that wash, he may have to
Can't-
get rid of a few of those guys. They may not be here.
I know.
Yeah, I know it's true, right?
No, on Sundays, please.
Dying. I'm
please,
dying.
Please.
I watched
Not
the
much.
NASCAR race the other day.
Well, yeah. Well, you like NASCAR,
I like
though. You
that.
do
It's
like
exciting.
NASCAR. Yeah, you
Maybe
do.
Where-
bring back the
you-
NASCAR minute.
That United
I'm gonna
Football
tell you-
League is starting.
I'm going to tell you what I've gotten into watching is because it's real basketball, Chris. If you watch it, the passing, they're running screens.
G-League?
It's the women's basketball is
Oh, yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah.
This girl Caitlin Clark from Iowa. It's
Yeah.
I try to watch as many games she plays as possible. She's fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, but they do it right. They play basketball.
They do it right. They play basketball.
There's no hero
play
ball there.
Yep.
They play basketball. So, okay. Eliot Wolf came out, had his press conference. I want to talk a little bit about some of the points he made, what you can take away from the press conference he had this week. I mean, last week we dogged this team about we don't need any more kumbaya. I don't want to, you need to introduce me to this guy. But this one, this conference, this presser was a little different. I was encouraged with some of the things I heard coming away from this. First, he's the guy. I mean, he flat out said it. Look, it's a collaboration. It was before a collaboration with Mayo, Wolf, Grow. You notice in this press conference, there was no Grow mentioned here. It was now Gerard Mayo, myself, but at the end of the day, somebody's going to make the pick. It's going to be me. Which is
Chris,
pretty,
I think that the lead up to all this was Grow was going to stay through the draft process, and then he was probably going to move on. I think they thought he'd go, he'd leave before that because Belichick would get a job, but they still think Grow's going to move on after this process is over.
So he's the GM. I mean, this is it. This is the guy that's making
Grow,
the decision. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I'm glad somebody has stepped up and said, okay, this is me.
Sure.
Why they won't give him the title? It's
money. Maybe it's money.
I think it is. I think it all has to do with money, Mark, But
well, Chris, this week it comes out that they didn't want to pay Nick Haley. That's why he didn't come as the OC.
Right. Well, we knew that. I mean, we said
we
that.
Knew that,
reported
right?
that. I mean, it's everybody kept talking about, well, he wants to stay. It's not an attractive position.
No.
That's BS. That's nonsense. Anybody who's skating that narrative about it's not attractive to it. If you suck, if your coach got fired, of course it's not attractive. You stink. You fired your coach. I mean, obviously they're not the only team with 4 wins. So it's money. You pay them, they come. That's it.
Yeah,
Free agents, you pay them, they come.
They
So
come.
Mark, talking about some of this, and I want to meld this into also some of the draft talk too. And the philosophy here. You mentioned it a little bit in your segment where they want to weaponize the offense. They want to be explosive on defense. Okay. They want athletes. They want speed on defense, which I was like, that's all I heard. Whoa. Because he's got to be talking about the middle linebacker spot. Right?
Yeah, you would think.
So what do you make of that, first of all? How is he going to do what does he mean by that?
So if you look at based on what he said, Chris, and based on where he's coming from with Green Bay, they'll sign a couple of free agents to try to fill in, maybe, add some weapons perhaps, or maybe, but I really, truly believe, Chris, he's going to try to build this through the draft and try and come up with, who he needs through the draft, bring in a couple of free agents, because Green Bay used to do that. You bring in a couple of free agents, you build through the draft. It's a 2 or 3 year process. When these guys are all ready, boom, and I hate to say it, but I
what
think
is that? You know what that
going to
equals,
see.
don't you? You know what that equals with the 3rd pick. What does that equal? You want more picks? They're going to trade the pick. That's what it means.
I don't know if they're going to trade the pick, Chris, because he really emphasized the quarterback position.
Yeah, I know. But he also emphasized we have to play our young guys, which, listen, we talked in your segment about taking shots at Belichick. He took a lot of those too. He really took a lot of shots at Belichick. My God, in his press conference, things are going to be different. We're going to treat people right, whatever, we're going to play our young guys. So that goes to what you're saying about the draft, that they want to draft and play the guys that they draft, right? Well, that can only mean we need more picks. We need, and to me,
I hope that's not the case, Chris.
Look, I just don't. As far as the Green Bay way, all right. Let's talk about the quarterback for a minute. The Green Bay way is, and they've been probably the best in football at drafting quarterbacks.
Yep.
Right. Would we agree with that over the last decade or so?
Absolutely.
Okay. What they like to do is they like to draft the quarterback, sit the quarterback, have another guy. Normally, with them, they already had their guy, and then they were able to sit the guy. But that's what I anticipate happening here, that they want to draft the quarterback, sit him, get a bridge guy, and then move to your guy. So if that's their way that they wanted to do this, are we sitting here then at number 3 saying, okay, we're just going to take because you and I said this. I don't want to be in a spot where the first 2 guys go and we're just taking what's left of the top 3. Is that what they're going to do?
Based on what he said, possibly. Here's what I would like to see them do. But I think based on what he said, Chris, your worst fear may come true. They're going to take what's left.
Drake May is my worst fear right now.
Yes, Drake May is my worst fear. And I think the more and more you read, Jalen Daniels is going to be 2. And
maybe
May's going to
end up
maybe even 1. And May's going to end up being 3. And Williams and Daniels will be 1, 2. Here's what I would do. Based on his comment of the weaponizing the offense, Marvin Harrison at 3, trade up into the late first round, trade with Baltimore, go get like a Michael Penix from Washington. You can let him sit for a couple of years. Go get your bridge guy. Take Penix, or if they think Nix is better, the guy from Oregon, take one of those 2.
Or the South Carolina quarterback.
You could take him later.
Right,
but I'm saying if you want to take somebody higher, you take one of those guys. Now you got your receiver. You got a quarterback to sit for a year or 2. And then you can take a tackle. Now you can start to fill in the rest of your needs because you have a ton of needs, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want him. If you trade down, Chris, not only do you not get maybe a quarterback, a top quarterback, you also don't get Harrison.
What's pissing me off about what I keep hearing is I keep hearing all these experts, all these people. And listen, you hear Tim Hasselback or, talk about Drake May. I go run out and draft them right now, as opposed to other guys that are coming out and saying, stay away from this guy. So what it tells you is nobody knows. And nobody knows with these quarterbacks. You just don't know. And so if you're gonna sit there and dangle that 3 out there and you're gonna take one of these guys, that's how teams get in the doghouse for years. Okay. Then you take a shot on one of these guys, he stinks, and now you're back in the same mode again. You're back in the same mode. And people argue that and say, well, look at Atlanta. Atlanta was top 10 picks for the last 3 years or whatever. They ignored the quarterback position, and they're still floundering because of that. Okay, that's a counter argument, Mark. But
it is. But Chris, here's the thing. If you look at tape from this year, just tape of this year, the best quarterback in college football this year based on tape was Jaden Daniels.
Oh, Jalen Daniels, yeah.
Jaden Daniels was the best quarterback on tape this year. If you look at last year, the year before, it was Caleb Williams. Yeah. So the last 2 years, the 2 best quarterbacks in college football have been Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels. Drake May's not there. So you're going to take Drake May, Chris. I don't know.
Checks. How about the box, Mark? How about the box that Eliot Wolf wants checked about the toughness? Caleb Williams falls in that category?
No, he doesn't. He does not. Listen, I'm going to tell you who checks the boxes. You're going to laugh at me. And you could probably get him at 12, 10. And listen, now we're getting into Mac Jones territory. But you probably could get this kid from Michigan. Who? And I look at now, he's getting a little uneasy. But listen, Chris, the kid's lost one game
Mitch
since middle school.
Trubisky.
Listen. No, listen. He's not Mitch Trubisky. He's lost one game since the 7th grade. Who does that remind you of?
I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that.
I'm just telling you.
I don't think JJ McCarthy is going to be. If you could get him later, maybe. But look, I'd rather go. Mark, I'm with you. Okay. What's irritating the hell out of me is what's irritating the living crap out of me is when I hear these guys. Stay with me now. When I hear these guys talking about Patriots have too many holes. You got to trade the pick. They have too many holes, and then they stop. There's no more analysis. Talk about the holes then. Tell me what the holes are that you can't fill in free agency and you can't fill later in the draft. That you have to trade that pick. I'm sick and tired of hearing about picks I'm going to get next year and the year after. We've done that. Seen that movie. I don't want to see it again. Look. Yeah. Yes, they have tackle holes. They have wide receiver holes on offense. They have inside linebacker issues. Okay. Tight end. There are guys they can get. There are guys in the draft. They can re-sign their guy, so they can solve that problem. So think about the whole, and they got a quarterback problem. So if you really think about the holes, why isn't the scenario, Mark? I take Marvin Harrison, number 3. I trade the 3rd round pick and I take Fields. And I'm sorry,
if they're willing to give you Fields for a 3rd round pick.
They will. Oh, they are. They're talking tough, but they're going to give him up because they're going to take a quarterback. I don't even care. They'll take that pick because it's basically a 2nd round pick. And so Justin Fields is not a bridge. I'm going to say it. He is not a bridge quarterback. He's been playing for 3 years. He's only year 4. That's it. This is not Wilson, Baker Mayfield, Kirk Cousins. That's not who this is. This is a guy that has so much higher of a ceiling. You need to be picking this guy up. And so you're looking to look at this and say, I'm taking Marvin Harrison with the 3rd pick. And in the 3rd round, I'm taking Justin Fields. That's fine because I want to develop him. I want him to be my future. And then if you really want to draft Penix, because I think you can get that guy late in 1st, 2nd round, you can get those guys there. Okay.
Chris, but I think if you take Fields and you say you sign a Jacoby Brissett too, let them both be on the roster, right? In the 2nd round, but Chris, in the 2nd round, if you want to take a tackle, just say, this is the deepest tackle draft, Chris,
right?
In 10 years. This is the year that you're going to get a good tackle in the 2nd round. And if you do your homework, you probably will get a good tackle in the 3rd round.
Right. So you want to fill your holes? Go get Dwayne Brown. Go get Tyron Smith. Go get free agents at the tackle position. Fill it. Go get Noah Fant. Re-sign Henry. Franchise Owinu. That's how you fill. Now your holes are filled. And the biggest hole of all is the quarterback that was talked about going in the top 3, which he did 3 years ago. Yeah, he's had bad time, but it was in Chicago. You can rehabilitate that, Mark. And now the biggest one, too, is your ace, your Jamar Chase, your Jefferson. That's Harrison. And then you can go get 2s and 3s. Instead, what? Free agency, there's all 2s and 3s. None of it's a 1. There's nobody that's a 1 out there, Mark, really. Not like this kid.
No, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. You want to take a corner. You'll take another corner. I'm
telling you. Tackle, take him in free agency, inside linebacker, all of that. So let's see what Eliot Wolf does. But the Packer way, just so you know, real quick, I'm going to say this.
Go ahead.
In all the time Aaron Rodgers was there in Green Bay, they never took a wide receiver in the 1st round.
No, ever. I know that. So then they're not going to take Marvin Harrison. So forget that idea, Chris.
Yes, our thoughts are out the window. They don't listen to us again, Mark. So stay tuned. Stick around. Make sure you call us in Heated Hotline. Corso and Catone was presented by Corso Law Group. Hey, get on, watch, listen to all our shows. They're up for you. Make sure you subscribe. Give us that thumbs up. Joe will hit me if I don't say that to you. So make sure you do that. And come back next weekend, noon to 1. We'll talk Celtics. We'll talk Bruins, Catone's comments, talk a little baseball as spring training gears up. Combine talk too, and anything you bring to the table, we will be ready. We are Corso and Catone, the real deal, New England feel. See you next Saturday.
Now find Corso and Catone on AM 790, The Score.
iHeartRadio, iTunes, wherever you podcast. Or subscribe to the YouTube channel and catch the chaos every Saturday at noon.